guys, so I'm here in Arizona and look what I've just seen up here ahead. 4 wild horses. That's pretty cool. I've seen quite a lot of signs on the road saying watch out for wild horses, and here we are, we found 4 of them. But anyway, the sun is starting to set in the sky, so I need to start painting quite soon really, before it gets dark. The sunsets here are absolutely beautiful. I'm going to be painting a sunset, and with sunset painting you have to be relatively quick. The light is very fleeting, and the main thing with painting a sunset is that you really focus on the light effect above all else. So I'm just going to sketch in a very loose kind of grid. I always like doing this at the start. It helps me reference the vertical and horizontal relationships of the scene. So I'm doing something which a lot of people say not really to do, is placing the horizon line in the center of the painting. But because the mountain is going to break that sort of line, is actually fine, because the whole idea of don't put the horizon line in the middle is because you don't want to divide the canvas in 2, but these mountains are going to take up more space. They're going to go over the center line. And again here I'm sketching the shapes in first, because the light is going to change, and I always find the best, prettiest light is just as the sun is setting. The lower it gets, the easier it actually gets to look at the scene, the more colours I can see. Obviously at the moment it's all kind of washed out. I've toned the canvas yellow because I know by doing that I can harness some of the yellow of the canvas to help me paint the sun. So one thing I've noticed as I've been travelling around and seeing the sunsets here, the mountains go quite a purpley colour, the sunset, which looks really nice. And here I'm actually just mixing a few colours on my palette for the darker sections of the painting, and then the lighter colours. And now we're starting to get a bit of that red of the sun coming in front of the mountain. And they always say the painting is done on the palette, so a lot of that colour mixing and stuff is getting done right now. So I'm going to go in with trying out a bit of this purpley colour for the mountain. This is neither the darkest dark nor the lightest light, but these mountains in the distance are obviously going to be lighter than the foreground. Using a flat brush you can actually get quite quick shapes in without too much trouble, and the mountains tend to get a bit lighter as they get closer to the ground. I'm just adding a bit of titanium white into my colour mix. This mix here, it's ultramarine blue, titanium white, alizarin crimson, and a small touch of cadmium yellow, because obviously I don't want to paint it vibrant purple. Yellow is a complement of purple, so if someone's looking too purple, add a bit of yellow in and it's going to take away some of that chroma. Okay, and then obviously as the sun sets it's going to influence the colours, so we're going to get some of this red breaking into the mountain. Right, and this is a good time to start picking up some red and yellow paint on the palette. And the sun is going to break through, so some of this is going to get completely lost into the sun. Now I'm going to go and start painting some of the sky. Actually, let's paint this light shape for the sunlight, because then I can paint basically a white dot on top of this. I'm just going to get another brush.
Maybe I'll start again. Maybe that can be my brown.
So the sun is really setting now, so I'm trying to paint quite thinly really, because I'm trying to use as little white as possible, because the white will no doubt influence the colours here. Okay. I'm going to mix another mix for the sky now. So the sky is yellowish, but obviously it's got a bit of purple, a bit of blue, and it gets warmer the closer it is to the sun, it's a warmer colour, and the higher it goes up, it takes on a bit of a neutral grey. So in other words, you can add a bit of blue to your colour mix. So sunset painting is all about speed when you're doing it on plein air, because the light really comes and goes. As you can probably see, the sun's already kind of setting, and here I'm not taking too much time to mix the colours. Here I'm just scrubbing. I'm going to scrub some of this in and use my tissue to do what we call a wipe out, where we wipe away, bringing back some of the yellow. This kind of pink colour for the sky continues along the horizon, and as the sky gets higher up, it takes on a bit of a different colour. Similar value, slightly different colour. And by using this yellow imprimatura, this yellow underlayer, I can pick up some of that lightness in the paint while keeping it warm. And let's just add a highlight for the sun. And there it was. You can see some of the shapes in the mountain slightly clearer now for the sunset. We'll pick up some of these shapes again. And again, I'm going to come in with some of that lighter colour to bring out some of these colours in the mountain. Now you can see some really beautiful reddy purple oranges coming through in the sky. So I'm going to be chasing the colours a little bit. That's one of the joys of painting on plein air, is if you see something that you like, you can kind of chase that, paint it in. Obviously if you're working from a photo, you know, if you don't like the general thing, then not much you can do about that. Yeah, the sky is going to sort of get greyer as it goes up. It gets a bit cooler in colour temperature as it goes higher up. I still want to keep it quite light in value. Yeah, and I'm just rubbing this in quite light because obviously the colour's picking up in the sun. I just want to go back in and add a bit more yellow to the sort of mid section of the sky. Just adding manganese blue to a mix of cadmium yellow, titanium white, and the mix also does have a touch of alizarin crimson, but just a small touch, because I want it to be more close to blue than purple. And this gradation of colours in the sky. So you do need some greys. The grey colours give the bright colours their brightness. If everything's very bright, nothing's very bright in a sense. And that is the rule of simultaneous contrast. Add a bit more purple here. And a little bit over here as well. I'm going to rub back some of this to give it a bit more of that yellow. So those mountains in the distance are still quite far away, so they're never going to be as dark. Obviously if you compare them to the sun, they're going to look very dark, but if you compare them to the foreground,
Make them that dark.
they're quite light. Now I'm going to paint in some of this foreground. So we've got obviously this tree which comes up here. I'm going to soften some of these branches going off into the sky. Adding some of this contrast to the foreground, it's going to push those mountains further back in the distance, and as a result it's also going to make the sun look lighter. And this is the secret really to adding perspective to your painting, is you've got to keep the darkest darks in the foreground, and instantly this is starting to push those mountains a bit further back into the distance. If you are enjoying this video, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you like more of these sort of real-time painting videos, then let me know in the comments. When you're painting from life, you do have to use a fair bit of visual memory, a bit of imagination, a bit of creation. This one looks good, keep it. If it doesn't look good, change it. So I'm actually going to cover this with a bit of purple, you know, to give, then I can paint some lights on top of this. Just adding a bit more yellow here to this purple, but it's still, I'm just going to thin down the paint a bit just to add this in, so that covers the ground quicker. Just get this all covered. What I'm going to do after this, I'm going to pick up a few highlights of light that you can see on top of this purpley colour, because obviously the sun in my painting is creeping over the mountain a bit, so basically anything which is in the line of the sun, it's going to be catching a little bit of light. It's going to be a bit silhouetted. This is quite a quick way of just covering in some of this. Add a bit of this kind of sun effect. Breaking through some of these bits which are a bit closer to the sun. And I'm going to pick up a few highlights in the foreground, you know, where maybe the sun is sort of catching the tops of some of these plants. I'm using tissue to wipe it away because I've got the yellow imprimatur underneath. I can lift out a few areas of sunlit sections of the painting. The sun is going to be lighting up the ground in a few sections. Then I can go back in with this with some darker sections of paint. highlighting some of these with the effect of some grass. Just drag some of this light into. Picking out a few of these little shrubby bits of and a few section of contrast, you know, keeping this quite impressionistic here in the foreground. Keeping the edges sort of soft as well. Could be sort of sections of grass and parts of the painting which are more in shadow. A few sections of light where this some are sort of creeping over a bit. Got a beautiful sort of twilight looking painting here, and here I'm just going to soften a bit of this into a few more bits of contrast. I think it's probably about done there. I mean, it's going to get dark quite soon.
So I hope you enjoyed that video of me painting this sunset here in Arizona. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also follow me on Instagram at George Frederick Thomas to keep up with my artwork.